So the UK government is trying to make an example out of Tommy Robinson. They just sent him to 13 months in prison. It's, I guess, because he had a previous sentence that was suspended, and now he has to fill the remainder of it. And it's because of a bogus charge that he was like disturbing the peace and inciting violence and reporting on something that was restricted, the grooming case scandal that was going on right now. But everything that he asked and talked about was already reported in some of the biggest main journalists or some of the biggest main print media stations or companies in the area. So it was already public knowledge. But this is just to scare the public, to tell them if you talk about anything that has to do with the recent changes in immigration, with all these Muslim refugees and migrants and all this shit coming into your country, changing the culture, raping the girls, like in the hundreds and thousands, pretty much. Like if you say anything about this, you are gonna go to jail. If you step out of line, this is just making it's telling all the pretty much white people in England to shut the fuck up and just wait and let your country be taken over eventually. And if you say anything, we're going to put you in prison because there was that one guy who threw bacon at a mosque. He went to prison and got killed. Like this is pretty much a death sentence because he just threw bacon at a mosque. If Muslims are going to freak out about that, imagine how they feel about Tommy Robinson, right? And people are going to say, well, you deserve it because you're a racist bigot. That's what all these blue check marks are saying right now on Twitter, and they're all happy and just as joyous and all this shit. You read their tweets and their posts and they're like, or their profile, and it's like socialist, communist. It's like, yeah, of course, you're all the fucking same. This is all fucking leftists that are just praising this, that are so happy about it because it shuts down their enemies. They don't care. They know that there's a huge risk of him being killed in prison. So that kind of goes against and they'll be like, well, he'll deserve it. So that kind of goes against their idea that, oh, the Muslims are peaceful and they're not mean, and that's like they know that they're gonna overreact when you say anything or do anything about their religion. So it's like, they're not completely clueless. They know that when they send him to jail, he's gonna have to watch his back 24/7, and that is fucking bullshit. That is, insane that people are getting put away for this shit. Like, there was one girl who had to, pay a fine for like $800 or $1,000 because she posted some lyrics that had the N word in it. There was another guy, there's Dankula, who almost went to prison as well because he made his dog, do a Nazi sign. But on the reverse side, there's all these fucking Muslim people that do not go to prison, that do not go to jail, no matter what they do. There was like an Islamic teacher who raped an 11-year-old girl and all these other kids repeatedly, but he wasn't sent to prison because his wife couldn't speak English. So then they're like, well, who's going to take care of the kids, and the judge is like, well, I can kind of understand this, that. There was another guy who spat in a baby's face, right, and told the mother, it's like, white people shouldn't breed, and no hate crime charge. Countless cases like this, but no hate crime. And then they look at the statistics. They're like, well, look, there's clearly way more hate crimes against these people, and there's none towards white people because you're privileged and blah, 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 right? And then they use that against you again. And it's like, no, there is, but it's just not being reported. And I'm not for hate crimes. I don't think that should be a distinction to begin with. But if you are going to have them, you should at least apply them evenly. There are plenty of cases like this that do happen, but it's not considered a fucking hate crime. But as soon as Tommy Robinson goes around and asks them questions, and talks about things that are true, then it's a hate crime. It's hate speech. We need to put him away, put him in jail. And the police in the UK are despicable motherfuckers. Like, he was asking them when they were taken away, he's like, are you guys okay with doing this? Like, are you totally fine? Like, really, like, if the police in the UK, I don't know if people are just drones when they start to work for the government or something, but people are like, oh, it's my job. It's like, man, like, do you have not, like, if you guys all just say, no, we're not going to do this, we're not going to put people in jail for hate speech, then people wouldn't be going to jail for hate speech. Like, these laws are only functional because there's the illusion that, because everybody consents to this law that is functional. Like, but if all the police were just like, no, this is bullshit, we should stop enforcing this, then, they would have no leg. Like, they would not be able to enforce these restrictive laws. So all you people, a lot of you people are just sheep with going along with it. And the police, if they come together, would have power to actually stop this shit. So, you are responsible. If you work for the government and you're just going along with it, and you're not making any changes on the inside, you're not trying to whatsoever, you are also responsible for what happens to Tommy Robinson if he gets killed in prison. You are responsible for what happens to the UK in the future, with the demographic shift and how it's going to turn into a fucking shithole. Like, that is going to be also your fault. You're not just going to be able to blame the government policies, because the government policies, all these things, would not be able to take place without the consent, without the use of force from people in the uniform, from people like you going and picking up Tommy Robinson and putting him in prison. Like, if enough police within a certain area just boycott and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore, or we're not going to pick people up for these crimes anymore, then it won't happen. So they also have power, and it's ridiculous. It's sickening to see leftists and stuff praising this. They don't know what they're doing. Like, they don't know what type of world that they are creating. They don't know how horrible it's gonna be for them. Like, really, it's like, even if you don't get censored immediately and it doesn't get used against you immediately, you're eventually going to be taken over by Muslims, and then they're going to enact Sharia law. Then you will be fucking censored. It's like, it's horrible what the fuck is happening to Tommy, and I hope this somehow gets resolved. But the way and the speed at which they're doing this, they're trying to. They made Breitbart take down their article about this. They're not letting people report about this within the country. Otherwise, they're going to put them in jail too. So it's like, this is totally insane. We need other people to speak out about this. We really need, if anything, Trump needs to say something about this. Other governments need to speak out about this, because you need to put pressure on this. And the more we speak about it, the better it is. Because what's happening right now, in the UK, nobody there is going to see anything about it, because their media is barely going to report on it. And if they do report it, they're going to leave out a lot of important facts, and they're going to frame Tommy Robinson to be a right-wing extremist, bad, evil, hateful bigot. So then, in the eyes of a lot of dumb idiots who don't understand the concept of free speech and how important it is, they'll be like, oh, well, that is mean, and, he shouldn't say that. Maybe they should go to jail. And, like, people are dumb. They don't think about free speech and what it leads to. And, like, that's why I don't like fucking Richard Spencer and stuff. He's against free speech. And it's like, you people, you don't understand what leads to progress, what leads to achievement, what leads to wealth. It is free speech. That is the basis of which all the other laws and all the other rights that you get are started from. Like, you need the basis of free speech. That is the most important thing. And once you get rid of that, it's all downhill from there. And people be like, oh, well, there was monarchies and stuff that lasted for 1,000 years and they didn't have free speech. But yeah, they all lived like fucking shit. Okay? They were peasants, and they were slaves to the fucking king, and were dance and give up their life for the whim of the king, go and fight in wars and shit. Like, no, like nobody, fuck that shit. But let's, I don't know, more people need to speak about this. Keep making videos, talk about this more, and I think the only thing we can really do right now is bring attention to it. And other than that, I don't really see what else people can do. Other maybe start protesting. Make a stink about this. Like, I don't realize, I don't understand how people aren't up in arms about the amount of restrictions that are going on. Free speech, like, for the fact of like Dankula almost going to jail for what he did, that should be a wake up call for people. But the fact that it isn't, it's like, it makes me have very little hope that things will turn around fast enough in a lot of countries, Western countries, before everything just turns to shit. Because it seems to me that a lot of things that should be getting more attention, or that should be making people a little more freaked out, don't. And they're like, well, it's, I could see how that joke could be, because it made it seem racist, and yeah, you know, like, people are dumb. It's like, think about you, think about yourself. It's like, if you made a little joke and then you were faced with like a couple of years in prison, you'd probably immediately be like, no, okay, free speech, free speech. But you need to be smart enough to realize that one day it could apply to you, because things change, and if you still have these laws in place to put people away for wrong think, then the wrong thing can one day change into something else, something that you think right now. It's like a lot of liberals, a lot of people on the left, they think they're kind of grouped up, but like these socialists, they fucking hate liberals, and they're like, but the liberals in the gulags too. So it's like, yeah, they're gonna pretend to be all buddy buddy with you, pretend to know pretend to believe a lot of the same things and whatnot with the more centrist type liberals. But as soon as like they get more power, you're the next fucking enemy. You're the next, thing that they need to get rid of. So it's this is how it works with these crazy fucking leftists. They just keep eating each other more and more and more, and they will never stop. So stop this right now, if you can. Like, the police, like I said before, they have power. They could potentially get together and say like, no, we're not going to do this, because it's going to be really hard for the UK government and stuff to hire enough police in time to replace everybody. So then they have power in that sense. People got to realize they have power in numbers. Don't be slaves to the fucking few people who are up at the top saying like, okay, this is how it is. And you look at a lot of like immigration, for instance. You look at the a number of people who support certain policies, and are like, you find like, oh, 60-70% think immigration should be lowered, 80% or whatever, or some other topics like 80-90% of the population thinks this. But then the government goes around and does something that is against that. Everybody's like, oh, okay, well, whatever, it's fine. But if people understood the power that they had, then they could just be like, no, okay, we're not going to let in these people, regardless of what the people on top fucking say. It's sometimes you need to have some civil disobedience, because I'm not saying always break the rule of law every time, but like, there is a point in time when civil disobedience is necessary, and it is soon becoming like that. It is soon going to be that time in the UK, and it should probably have already passed, or it should already be that time, considering how far they have come in terms of free speech and shit. Things don't take that long to change. Things can change in 20 years very quickly, and the way it's going now, in the next 20 years, yeah, it's going to be a completely different fucking country, and it's going to be further left than it is even now. So, this should be a wake-up call, and hopefully Tommy Robinson is okay and nothing, bad does happen to him in prison, maybe he can try to get in solitary confinement at the very least. At least he'd be okay and alive by the end of it. But knowing the government in the UK and all this shit, they want to silence him, so they prefer him getting killed, right? People, they act like they don't have a death sentence, but they pretty much do in the UK when you're say anything about Muslims and you go in jail. But that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.